this is again a commentary on some points that have been made in The Ruin of Kasch by Roberto Calasso, a book that sums up what has happened to Europe in the last 200 years. It's a very dense book, but I can recommend that it is read in order to understand where we are today in our society. So last time we were talking about his touching upon the Congress of Vienna, which was held in 1814, and in which, as he says, a new aesthetics of politics was revealing itself. And he continues on page 36. At the Congress of Vienna, for the first time at a meeting of Western powers, there was a concern for popular consensus. Fear made this new precaution necessary, demanding innovation in language and manners. So here he's talking about a change in culture and highlighting obviously the very calculated way in which language and manners are employed with regard to certain aims and objectives in politics. And he quotes Benjamin Constant in his work on the spirit of conquest and usurpation, saying that despotism banishes all forms of freedom. Usurpation, in order to justify overturning what it then replaces, needs those forms, but in seizing them, it profanes them. So he is saying that with many social and political movements that claim to entirely do away with the old order and to bring in something new, they actually just make use of the structures of the old order and desacralize anything that was sacred with the old order. Again, we could liken this to the coup that took place after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib was usurped, but those who did take over power still needed the structure of prophecy, of sacred leadership as a form of framework in order to have some kind of authority over the people. But what they did was to set up a secular administrative system as opposed to the sacred position of imamate. So moving on, Benjamin Constant also says, there is no limit to tyranny when it seeks to obtain the signs of consensus. Very interesting. That again, there is this illusion of democracy. There is this illusion of gaining the popular backing of the people. But in actual fact, in gaining that popular backing, tyrannical measures are employed. And I would argue, even tyrannical psychological measures. And then he quotes, in brief, despotism rules with silence and leaves man the right to remain silent. Usurpation condemns him to speak, pursues him into the private sanctuary of his thoughts, and forcing him to lie to his own conscience, robs of him the last consolation of the oppressed, i.e., a despot is happy to take over power and for the people to keep quiet and just tolerate that tyranny. But a usurper who is trying to pass themselves off as a legitimate leader is anxious to gain this popular consent, and so will chase after the oppressed and compel them to pledge their allegiance, which the oppressed has to do against their own conscience.